She didn't reject you. You rejected yourself long before she ever had the chance. Let that truth settle in your bones, cold and heavy. You're looking for a strategy to win her back, a psychological trick to reverse her decision, but you're asking the wrong question. The game was lost before she walked away. She didn't leave you. She merely confirmed a verdict you had already passed on yourself. She saw the weakness you tried so desperately to hide, the silent plea for validation in your eyes, and she acted accordingly. She was not the executioner of your self-esteem. She was simply the one who read the death warrant you wrote and signed yourself. You've been replaying the scenarios, haven't you? The last conversation, the final text message, searching for the one wrong move, the single mistake that tipped the scales. Torment yourself with hypotheticals, believing that if you had just been wittier, more confident, less available, the outcome would have been different. This is the first lie you tell yourself to avoid the devastating truth. The truth is, there was no single moment. It was a slow, systematic dismantling of your own authority, a campaign of self-sabotage you waged every single day. Every time you answered her text in seconds, afraid that a delay might signal your own importance. Every time you rearranged your schedule at a moment's notice for a sliver of her time. Every time you laughed at a joke that wasn't funny or agreed with an opinion you didn't share, just to maintain the fragile peace of her approval. You weren't building a relationship, you were auditioning for one. And you failed the audition because the role you were playing was that of a man who did not respect himself. Think about it. The last time you saw her, that flicker of contempt in her eyes you chose to ignore. You called it a bad mood. Your mind rationalized it as stress from her work. But it was disrespect, pure and simple. It was the look a superior gives an underling who has just made a foolish error. And what did you do? You tried harder. You became more attentive, more accommodating, desperately trying to solve a problem that wasn't hers, but yours. You were a firefighter trying to put out a blaze with gasoline. The more you gave, the less she valued it. The more you chased, the faster she ran. You became predictable, a constant source of validation she could tap into whenever she felt bored or insecure, knowing you would always be there, waiting, hoping. You made yourself an utility, not a priority. Utilities are used, not loved. The philosopher Arthur Schopenhauer built his entire worldview on a single brutal engine, the will. A blind, insatiable, striving force that dictates every action, every desire, and is the ultimate source of all suffering. Your will became fixated on her. She was no longer a person. She was a symbol, the representation of your happiness, your success, your worth. You chained your entire existence to her response. Positive text from her, and your day was a victory. Silence, and your world collapsed. You were not in love with her. You were enslaved by your will's representation of her. Schopenhauer would not see your pain as romantic tragedy. He would see it as the predictable, mechanical outcome of a will that has been allowed to run rampant, unchecked by reason or self-possession. You are in a prison of your own making, and she is not the jailer. Just a reflection on the polished steel walls, reminding you that you hold the key. Before we dismantle the architecture of your self-inflicted prison, brick by painful brick, I demand you take the first step toward your liberation. This is not a request, it is a command. Subscribe to Dominio Psicologico because this channel is your new training ground. Like this video as a formal declaration of war against the weakness that has cost you everything. In the comments below, I want a full intelligence report. Where in the world are you beginning this war from? State your city or country. I want to see the global map of men who are ready to reclaim their sovereignty. Your battle begins with that single comment. Look at your phone right now. I know your small, glowing rectangle has become the altar where you sacrifice your dignity. You reread her last message, a cold, indifferent sentence, and you treat it like a sacred text, searching for hidden meanings, for a glimmer of hope that isn't there. Typed out a dozen replies, haven't you? Long, emotional paragraphs pouring out your heart, which you wisely delete. Then shorter, casual messages trying to feign indifference, which you also delete. You are a general planning an attack, but your hands tremble, your intelligence is faulty, and your enemy controls the entire battlefield. Silence from her end is not a void, it is a weapon. It's a calculated move of psychological warfare designed to make you are breaking. Every minute that passes, your anxiety grows, resolve crumbles. You are losing a war against an opponent who isn't even present. You are fighting a ghost in your own mind. This obsession, this humiliating cycle of hope and despair, is not a sign of how much you loved her. It is a symptom of how little you value yourself. Your mind has become a hostile territory, occupied by the memory of her. Every thought is a potential traitor. A song on the radio, a street you once walked down together, a random word. Anything can trigger the cascade of weakness, the urge to reach out, to beg for one more chance. You think you are fighting for her, but you are fighting against yourself. You are your own worst enemy. You are the saboteur in your own command center, feeding yourself false hope and flawed strategies. You tell yourself that this pain is proof of your love's depth, a noble suffering. Schopenhauer would call this what it is: the pathetic squealing of a will denied its object. There is no nobility in this. There is only the grim mechanics of cause and effect. You surrendered your internal authority, and now you are paying the price in the currency of your own sanity. The ultimate humiliation is not that she doesn't want you. It's that you have become someone that you, yourself, cannot respect. A man who bargains for attention. A man who tolerates indifference. A man whose emotional state is a puppet controlled by the strings of a woman's validation. This is the man you see in the mirror, isn't it? If you dare to look long enough. Hollowed-out eyes, the forced smile, the posture of defeat. You are a king who has willingly given away his crown and now begs for scraps from the castle kitchen. You believe this pain will end when she comes back. That is the greatest illusion of them all. Even if she returned, she would be returning to this man, this weakened, hollowed-out version of you. And she would leave again. Because contempt is a weed that, once planted, never stops growing. The only way out is not to get her back. The only way out is to destroy the man who let her go in the first place. This video is not a map to her heart. It is a blueprint for the controlled demolition of the man you have become, and a guide to building a fortress in his place. The question is, are you prepared to burn it all down to be reborn from the ashes? The architecture of your defeat was not built in a day. It was a meticulous, painstaking construction, and you were the lead architect, the primary laborer, and the first casualty. You believe she rejected you. This is a comforting lie. The truth is far more damning. You were rejected by the laws of nature, by the fundamental physics of power and respect. She was merely the instrument, the force that pushed over a structure that was already rotten to its foundations. Let's perform an autopsy on your surrender. Let's trace the disease from its first, almost imperceptible symptom to the final, catastrophic system failure. This is the cold, strategic deconstruction of your fall. The first stage of your capitulation was emotional concession. It began subtly. So subtly, you probably called it being nice or keeping the peace. Remember that time she was late, and instead of holding her accountable to the standard of your own time's value, you said, "It's okay, I don't mind"? You did mind. Every second you waited, your subconscious registered a small debit from your account of self-respect. You taught her that your time was infinitely flexible and ultimately worthless. Remember the opinions you swallowed? The political view you didn't challenge? The critique of a movie you loved that you let slide with a weak smile? You thought you were avoiding an argument. What you were actually doing was communicating that your convictions were for sale, and the price was her momentary approval. She tested. You yielded. She won. Each of these concessions was a small paper cut. Insignificant on its own, but 1,000 of them will leave you bled out on the floor. Schopenhauer would argue that your will to live, your fundamental drive for self-assertion, was being negotiated away piece by piece. You were trading sovereignty for comfort, a fool's bargain that always ends in ruin. This wasn't compromise. It was a series of unconditional surrenders on a battlefield you didn't even realize you were on. You thought it was a dinner date. She knew it was a territory dispute. You conceded territory every time you said yes when your gut screamed no. You gave up ground every time you apologized for an emotion she found inconvenient. "I'm sorry I got upset." Why? Because your feelings were a nuisance to her? When you apologized for your authentic reaction, you signed a contract stating that her comfort was more important than your reality. That was the first brick laid in the wall of your prison. From these concessions, the infection metastasized into the second stage, loss of control. Your emotional state, your internal equilibrium, was no longer your own. It became a satellite, locked in orbit around her. Her mood became your weather system. A good morning text from her, and the sun was shining in your world. A delayed reply, and you were plunged into a storm of anxiety and doubt. You outsourced the regulation of your nervous system to her thumbs. Look at the evidence, the constant checking of your phone, the analysis of her online status, the obsessive rereading of past conversations, trying to decipher the tone of a punctuation mark. This is not the behavior of a sovereign man. This is the frantic activity of a slave listening for the footsteps of his master. Your focus shifted from your purpose, your work, your mission, your own development, to her. She became the center of your universe, and in doing so, you ceased to be the center of your own. Schopenhauer saw the world as a manifestation of the will, a blind, striving force. Your will, which should have been directed at conquering your own life, became entirely fixated on the representation of her in your mind. You weren't reacting to her. You were reacting to the phantom you had created, a phantom whose approval was the only source of nourishment for your starving self-esteem. The practical result? You became reactive instead of proactive. You waited for her to set the tone, to make the plans, to grant you an audience. Your power, your agency, was handed over without a fight. She didn't have to dominate you. You knelt and offered her the crown. Your silence is dominance, not distraction. Every hour she made you wait for a reply was a training exercise, conditioning you to accept her power over your emotional state. And you learned your lesson perfectly. This leads directly to the third, and perhaps most humiliating stage. The frantic search for validation. You stopped being a participant in the relationship and became a perpetual applicant for the position. Your actions were no longer driven by your own values, but by a desperate calculus of what might please her, what might win you a scrap of her approval. You started over-explaining yourself, justifying your decisions, seeking her permission for things that were entirely within your own domain. Going out with my friends tonight, is that okay? That question is a declaration of subservience. It tells her that her authority extends even to your own time and your own friendships. You began fishing for compliments, orchestrating situations where she might be prompted to say something, anything, that affirmed your value. You became a performer, and she was the one-woman audience whose applause you craved. This behavior is a poison. It communicates neediness on a primal level. Women, and people in general, are not attracted to neediness. They are repulsed by it. It signals a void within you, a vacuum of self-worth that you are trying to fill with her validation. But a woman cannot fill that void. To her, it is a black hole that threatens to consume her own energy. She tested you, and you failed. She would pull away slightly, a natural and often subconscious test of your internal stability. Your man barely notices. He is busy with his own life. Insecure man, however, panics. He sees the distance and rushes to close the gap, showering her with more attention, more communication, more pressure. You saw her pulling back not as a test of your strength, but as a failure of your performance. So you tried harder. You tap-danced faster. You became a clown in the court of her indifference, hoping a grander gesture would win her back. When you should have pulled back yourself, demonstrating that your world does not revolve around her, you instead lunged forward, confirming her suspicion that it did. The fourth stage is the inevitable outcome, complete affective dependency. At this point, you are no longer an addict in denial. You are a full-blown junkie. Her attention is your drug. Her presence provides the high. Her absence triggers the agonizing withdrawal. Your entire sense of well-being is chained to her. This is the point where Schopenhauer's philosophy becomes a brutal diagnosis. The will, in its blind obsession with an object it believes will quell its endless striving, has created a state of profound suffering. You believe your pain is a testament to the depth of your love. It is not. It is a measurement of the depth of your dependency. It is the shriek of a will that has been denied its fix. This is where the begging starts. Not always with words, but with actions. The pathetic good morning text sent after she ignored your last 3 messages. The offer to run errands for her, to do her favors, to be her convenient utility, hoping that your servitude will be mistaken for devotion. You made yourself endlessly available. You were a resource to be used, not a prize to be won. Anytime she called, you answered. Anytime she wanted to see you, you dropped everything. You demonstrated, through a consistent pattern of behavior, that you had nothing more important in your life than the possibility of her attention. You abandoned your own mission. You betrayed your own purpose. You sacrificed your masculine frame at the altar of her validation. And the cruel irony is that the more you gave, the less she valued it. Abundance devalues. Your constant presence, your predictable availability, made you common. You became part of the furniture of her life. Useful, perhaps, but easily ignored and ultimately replaceable. Finally, the 5th stage, the terminal diagnosis, breaking the silence. This is the moment of complete and utter collapse. It's the emotional nuclear option. After weeks or months of enduring her growing indifference, her silent dominance, you can't take it anymore. The pressure of your unexpressed neediness becomes unbearable. And so you break. You send the text. You know the one. The multi-paragraph essay pouring out all your feelings, your confusion, your pain. You demand an explanation. We need to talk. You orchestrate a confrontation where you lay all your cards on the table, but your hand is a losing one. It's a collection of weakness, need, and desperation. You think this act of vulnerability is courageous. You think you are fighting for the relationship. You are wrong. You are a defeated general crawling on your hands and knees to the enemy's tent to formally sign the terms of your unconditional surrender. When you asked for forgiveness for a crime you didn't commit, you signed your surrender. When you demanded to know why she was distant, you surrendered your power by admitting her distance controlled your peace. When you laid out your pain and asked her to fix it, you were not a man seeking a solution. You were a child crying for his mother. This final act solidifies her contempt. It confirms every doubt she ever had about your strength. You have shown her, in the clearest possible terms, that you are incapable of handling your own emotional world, and you are demanding that she manage it for you. This is the least attractive position a man can take. You have become a burden. And the natural human response to a burden is to cast it off. Her final rejection was not an act of cruelty. It was an act of self-preservation. You may be listening to this, and your mind, desperate to protect its fragile ego, is already formulating objections. But I was just being a good boyfriend. Isn't communication the key to a healthy relationship? I was just being honest about my feelings. Let's dismantle these lies right now. Being a good boyfriend is not synonymous with being a doormat. True kindness comes from a place of strength, not a fear of loss. Communication is key, but communicating from a position of weakness is like trying to negotiate a peace treaty when the other side has tanks on your lawn. It's not a negotiation, it's a capitulation. And honesty? Honesty without strength is just emotional incontinence. You didn't share your feelings. You dumped them on her, making your emotional state her problem to solve. The fall is not visible. It does not announce itself. It happens in the silence, in the hesitation before you speak your truth. It happens in the yes you uttered out of fear of her disappointment. It happened in the moment you chose her comfort over your own respect. This process of decay is not unique to you. It is the default trajectory for any man who does not consciously cultivate his own internal authority. If you are ready to stop being a victim of this process and start becoming the architect of your own unbreakable frame, then your work begins now. Acknowledge this truth by subscribing to Dominio Psicologico and activating all notifications, because your re-education is a daily discipline. Like this video as a symbolic gesture that you are done with the weakness that has cost you so dearly. And now, for your first mission. In the comments below, I want you to answer this question. What was the first compromise you made, the first time you said it's okay when it wasn't, that you now recognize as the beginning of your surrender? Do not be vague. Name the specific incident. We are marking the grave of your old self, and it starts by identifying the exact moment the poison first entered your system. Your self-rejection was a campaign, not a single battle. You lost the war in 100 small skirmishes you didn't even know you were fighting. At work, when your boss gave you an unreasonable deadline and you accepted with a smile, terrified of being seen as difficult. With your friends, when you went along with a plan you hated because you didn't want to be the one to rock the boat. In every area of your life, you have practiced the art of self-abandonment. The relationship with her was simply the final exam, the one you failed so spectacularly that you can no longer ignore the truth. She didn't see a man she didn't want. She saw a man who had already decided he wasn't worthy and was simply looking for someone to confirm his own verdict. Be obliged. Schopenhauer would say you are a slave to your own will, a will that you have trained to seek validation from the outside world rather than generating it from within. You are suffering because the world is reflecting back to you the exact value you have assigned to yourself, and you have priced yourself at 0. The silence from her phone is not about her, it's a mirror. It is reflecting your own lack of a compelling internal world. It is a symptom of the fact that when she is not there, you are not there either. You are a ghost in your own life, waiting for her to give you substance. But no one is coming to save you. No one can give you a spine. That is a piece of equipment you must forge for yourself in the fire of this brutal self-awareness. The diagnosis is complete. The disease has been named. Now the question is, do you have the courage to endure the cure? Let's be clear. There is no going back for the weak man. There is only the construction of the new. The person you were when she left is a casualty of war, a ghost on a battlefield you have already lost. To attempt to resurrect him is to embrace defeat a second time. Your mission is not one of recovery. It is one of demolition and reconstruction. You will not repair the old house. You will level it to its foundations and build a fortress in its place. A fortress so formidable that the memory of your former self will seem like a pathetic, distant dream. This process is not emotional. It is not about healing or finding closure. It is tactical, cold, and brutally efficient. It is the methodical application of psychological leverage, first upon yourself, and then, as a consequence, upon the world. Your first command is absolute. Cut the excess. You are a soldier preparing for a long and brutal campaign. A soldier sheds every ounce of unnecessary weight, every sentimental trinket, every emotional liability that could slow him down. Your sentiment is a liability. Your hope is a liability. Your memories are a liability. You will perform a strategic amputation, erase her number, delete the photos, archive every conversation. Block her on every platform where you might be tempted to observe her life. This is not an act of anger. Anger is a hot, messy emotion, and you are now an instrument of cold logic. This is an act of tactical discipline. You are cutting the enemy's supply lines, and your primary enemy is the weakness within you that feeds on her digital ghost. Every time you look at her profile, you are injecting yourself with a poison that keeps you paralyzed. You are giving her power over you without her even needing to be present. You are volunteering for your own psychological torture. The command is to cut. Not tomorrow. Not after one last look. Now. You are cauterizing a wound to prevent the spread of infection. It will hurt, but it is the pain of surgery, not the pain of decay. The second command follows from the first. Install the silence. Your silence from this moment forward is not a pause. It is a weapon. It is a declaration of a new regime. She is used to your availability, your predictable orbit around her. Your silence is a disruption of that reality. It is a sudden and unexplained void where a constant source of validation used to be. The human mind, and especially the female mind, abhors a vacuum. She will try to fill it. Her imagination will become your unwitting ally. Was he ever real? Did I imagine his devotion? Is he with someone else? Her certainty about her power over you will begin to fracture. This is the first step in reclaiming dominion. Do not win her back. Replace her with a sharper silence. When you don't respond, you are not ignoring her. You are communicating that you operate on a timeline she no longer has access to. You are busy building an empire. You don't have time to respond to messages from ghosts of the past. She reaches out, and she likely will, if only to test if the power cord is still plugged in. Your lack of response is the response. It is a statement of immense power. It says, your communication is not a priority. Your attempt to engage me has failed to meet the threshold of my attention. It will be an absence that has weight, not a presence that begs. This silence and separation create the necessary space for the third and most critical phase of the operation, the forging. You have been a slave to the Schopenhauerian will, that blind, striving force that latched onto her as the source of its satisfaction. Now, you will become the master of that will. You will take all of that desperate, obsessive energy you poured into her, and you will redirect it, like a river, into 3 pillars of your new fortress. This is not a self-help project. This is a strategic reallocation of assets. The first pillar, physical dominion. You will go to war with your body. The gym is your new training ground. The weights are your new instruments of discipline. You will treat your workouts not as a chore, but as a ritual of power. Every rep is an act of rebellion against the weak man you left behind. You are not getting in shape to look good for her. You are forging a physical presence that commands respect before you even speak. Your body is the armor that houses your mind. A weak, neglected body signals a weak, neglected will. You will sculpt yourself into a living testament to your own discipline. You will control what you eat, how you train, how you carry yourself. You will walk into rooms, and your physical form alone will announce that you are a man of order and power. Second pillar, financial dominion. Money is not just currency. It is a tool of power and freedom. Your financial weakness made you needy. You will attack your work, your career, your business with the ferocity of a starving wolf. Every extra hour you work, every new skill you acquire, every dollar you earn and invest is a brick in the wall of your independence. You will become so consumed by your mission to build your financial empire that you will forget to check your phone. Your purpose will become so compelling that the drama of relationships will seem like a childish distraction. A man obsessed with his mission is the most attractive man in the world, because his validation comes from his own achievement, not from the approval of others. He does not need a woman to complete him. He invites her to witness his empire. The third pillar, social dominion. You outsourced your entire emotional and social life to one person. This made you fragile. You will now rebuild your social hierarchy, reconnect with powerful male friends, build a network of allies, become a man of value within a group of men. A man's status is determined not just by his own actions, but by the quality of the men who surround him. You will become a leader, a source of strength, a man whose presence elevates the entire group. Your social life will become so rich and fulfilling that you will not have the time or the inclination to pine for one person who saw you as disposable. You will become a scarce commodity, a man whose time and attention are valuable because they are in high demand from many sources. This is the plan. It is not a hope. It is a protocol. Schopenhauer wrote, "A man can do what he wills, but he cannot will what he wills." For so long, your will was enslaved to the idea of her. You could not will it to stop wanting her, but you can, through brutal discipline, direct its actions. You can force the hands to lift the weight, force the mind to focus on the work, force the feet to walk into new social arenas. By controlling the actions, you will eventually retrain the will itself. You are reprogramming your own operating system. Before you take another step on this path to absolute self-possession, you must formalize your commitment. This is your enlistment. Subscribe to Dominio Psicologico and activate all notifications because this is your new command center, and every video is a strategic briefing. Like this video as a salute to the new general in charge of your life, you. And now, for your first official directive as a soldier in this war. In the comments below, I command you to declare your primary target. Which of the 3 pillars of your new empire, your physical dominion, your financial dominion, or your social dominion, will receive the full, undivided force of your will first? Declare your battlefield. This reconstruction is a solitary mission. You will feel the urge to show her your progress. You will be tempted to post a picture of your new physique or your recent success, hoping she will see it. Resist this urge. It is a trap laid by your old weak self. Your transformation must happen in the dark. Your success must be a rumor she hears from others, a whisper that makes her question everything. Let her see you months or years from now by accident, and not even recognize the man standing before her. Let the shock and regret be hers, not yours. A man who wants to be loved will be discarded. A man who imposes his presence will be feared. And fear, in this context, is the highest form of respect. It is the acknowledgement of power. You are not rebuilding yourself to win her back. You are building a new man who would never have been rejected in the first place. Your objective is not to reclaim a lost piece on the chessboard. Your objective is to become the hand that moves the pieces. Now begin. The war is over. Not because you won, but because you rose above the very concept of the battle. The man who started this journey, the ghost haunting the glowing screen of his phone, is dead. He was a necessary sacrifice, a casualty immolated on the altar of his own potential. The fortress you have built stands on his ashes, and from its ramparts, the world looks different. It is no longer a landscape of threats and potential losses, but a territory of opportunities, a map of your own making. You were taught to believe that the ultimate prize was to win her back, to see that text message of regret finally appear on your screen. That was the final lie of the weak man's mind, the last siren song luring you back to the rocks of your own destruction. And then, one day, it happens. Test. A notification illuminates your screen. It's her name. After months of your disciplined, weaponized silence, she has reached out. It is not a desperate plea. It is not an apology. Something far more insidious, far more telling. A casual, almost dismissive message. Hey, saw this and thought of you. Hope you're well. Perhaps it's a link to an old inside joke, a picture of a place you once visited. Look closely at this message. It is not an olive branch. It is a probe. It is a soldier sent to the walls of your fortress to see if the guards are still loyal to the old queen. She is not seeking reconciliation. She is seeking information. Testing the leash. Has he moved on? Is he still orbiting my reality? Does my name still have the power to stop his heart? The old you, the man we buried, would have felt a jolt of electricity, a toxic cocktail of hope and anxiety. His hands would have trembled. His mind would have raced, dissecting every word, every pixel for hidden meaning. He would have seen it as a sign, an opening, a chance to re-engage the battle he was so certain he could now win. He would have spent hours crafting the perfect reply, cool but not cold, interested but not eager. He would have fallen right back into the trap, signaling that he was, and always had been, waiting. But you are not him. You look at the name on the screen and you feel nothing. Not anger, not satisfaction, not even the cold thrill of victory. You feel a profound and unshakable indifference. It is the sterile disinterest of a scientist observing a dead specimen under a microscope. You see the message not as a communication from a person who once held your world in her hands, but as a predictable data point in a defunct psychological equation. You see her move for what it is, a bid for validation, a quiet knock on the door of a man she hopes still lives there, ready to provide it. And in your silence, in your complete and utter lack of response, you give her the only answer that matters. The inhabitant she is looking for is gone. The property is under new ownership. This is the final stage of dominance. Your silence is no longer a strategy. It is a state of being. It is not the pained silence of a man trying to prove a point. It is the effortless silence of a king who does not concern himself with the petitions of a commoner from a land he no longer rules. Schopenhauer diagnosed the source of all suffering as the striving of the will for an object it can never truly possess. Your suffering ended the moment your will detached from the representation of her in your mind. You did not conquer your desire for her. You rendered it obsolete by cultivating desires that were infinitely more powerful. The desire for self-mastery, for empire, for legacy. Her casual text is a whisper from a ghost, and you have no time to converse with the dead. Think of the dynamic as a chessboard. For years, you played her game. You reacted to her moves. You tried to anticipate her strategy. You agonized over every piece you lost. You believed that winning meant checkmating her king. The man you have become does not play that game. When her message arrived, She was making a move on that old board, expecting you to counter. Instead, you looked at the board, this small, pathetic stage for her dramas and your old weaknesses, and you did not make a move. You flipped the entire table over. You walked away from the game itself. Her power was entirely dependent on your participation. Without you as an opponent, she is just a solitary player in a meaningless game, moving pieces in an empty room. You did not defeat her. You erased her. You made her, and the entire universe she represented, irrelevant. This is the nature of true emotional revenge. It is not about making her feel pain. To wish pain upon her is to admit she still has a hold on your emotional state. True revenge is your success. It is utter indifference. It is the rumor she will one day hear about the man you have become, the businesses you have built, the respect you command, the life you have forged from the fires of your own discipline. The greatest torment for a person who discarded you is the realization that their absence was the necessary catalyst for your greatness. She will have to live with the knowledge that she was not the prize you lost, but the final obstacle you overcame. She was the gatekeeper to a version of yourself you had to kill to be free. Respect is not requested, it is commanded. Power is not given, it is taken. Your value is not determined by her acceptance. It is forged in the crucible of her rejection. You stand now as a testament to this truth. You are the architect of your own reality, the sovereign of your own internal state. The world will always test you. People will always probe for weakness. But the fortress you have built is not for them, it is for you. It is a permanent declaration that you will never again be a refugee in your own mind. You will never again bargain for a territory that is yours by right. To ensure you are never again deposed from your own throne, your training must be relentless. Subscribe to Dominio Psicologico, for this is not entertainment, it is your arsenal. Activate all notifications to receive your daily strategic briefings. Like this video as a final, definitive act of war against the man you used to be. And now, I have one final command for you. In the comments below, answer this with the cold certainty of a king. What is the single greatest mistake a man can make when he feels a woman pulling away? Your answer is not for me. It is a vow to yourself. She didn't reject you. She revealed to you the prison you had built for yourself. Your only mistake was believing she was the warden, when all along, you were the one holding the key. The day she begins to doubt the man you've become is the day you've long forgotten her name.